EVA blood. Let's make some nightmare fuel out of a $2 candle holder I got from an auction. This cute little baby is going to be weeping tears of lava, and in order to make sure that they will follow a convincing path, I'm just dribbling some water starting from the eyes down its face. You can use a brush or a water dropper, but then just trace the path that those droplets take. So I'm just going to make a base out of some old cardboard. I'm thinking this is going to be some sort of chaos corruption, so I'm going to start with an 8-pointed star, and I'm just going to sort of thicken things up so that when the base is cut out, it's not going to be too fragile. And then just cut it to shape. Do not lose fingers in this process. When you got that done, get a hot glue gun, glue the base to the statue. Easy. Okay, so now I've grabbed myself an edge piece from one of those EVA foam gym mats that you've probably seen me use in my other videos, and I'm just cutting off the teeth. I'm then going to wrap this around the base of the statue, and this is just going to add a bit of filler for the lava, so it's going to create the illusion it's a bit more deep than it actually is. Okay, so I've just got some old insulation foam here. I'm just cutting off some chunks. Really rough, no precision here, just chunks, and then using a hot glue gun to stick them in place. Don't have to worry about precision. This whole process took about maybe 10 minutes, if not that. Really simple stuff. Then get the hot glue gun and trace down those lines you've made on the model with some hot glue. These will be the tiers. When it reaches the base, fill in your little lake with some hot glue to make a lava pool. Don't worry about making mistakes, you can just peel off the glue and do it again if need be. And now to show you how to make a possessed meat halo. Just get a piece of wire and bend it around an old tin. In this case I'm using some coat hanger wire, and I'm just getting it to a nice sort of circular shape and trimming it to size. Yeah. And using some leftover chunks of foam, I'm just going to skewer them onto the wire, or you can just glue them on, either works. And when they are secured, again just using a hot glue gun, you can then follow up by applying a lot more hot glue just between the chunks. Just thread it around the wire, keep it messy, keep it rough looking. This will end up looking like tortured, possessed flesh, tendons. It's going to look gnarly. Just have a bit of fun with it. Glue it in place. When the hot glue itself has set, you're going to come in here with some gap filler. Now this is just going to be used only around the outside edge of the terrain piece. It's just going to fill in any weird gaps between the cardboard and the foam that won't really make sense, and just generally add some strength, make this thing last longer during gameplay. Let it dry. Easy. Looking closer at the hot glue, you can see that in the way that it has pooled, it doesn't really look like lava, it just looks like hot glue. So I'm just coming in here with a hairdryer, or you could use a heat gun, and I'm heating it up so that it will make a more convincing pool. Be aware that it will melt the foam if you're not careful, but that's okay, it'll just look more volcanic in this instance. So make sure you do this in a well-ventilated area, wear a mask, blah blah blah. You do not want to have too much melted foam in your lungs if you can help it. I also roughed up the gap filler. Construction is done. It's time to prime. I'm just using spray primer, starting with some black. Again, spray paint can cause foam to melt. In this instance, it's not a problem, as the pockmarked texture will just make it look a bit more like a volcanic texture. If you don't like this, just put a layer of PVA glue on the foam first, before you hit it with spray paint. I then came in with some white spray paint and hit it from underneath. This is to help convey the sense of light and glow that'll be coming from the lava pool below. In some areas I went a little bit overboard, so I just came back in with the black to just dull it down a little. Shadow effects. Neat. Cheap grey paint, and I'm going to water it down on a palette. And now I'm going to paint the entirety of this chubby cherub and the stonework. So I'm going to put at least 2 thin layers. Yes, the meme does apply, because you want a nice even texture. Excellent. Now when that's done, you want to come in and dry brush using some white over the entirety of the stone and the statue. Make sure you get rid of most of the paint before you apply it to the actual terrain piece. This is just to bring up the details, make them pop. Just the entirety of the piece, just give it a generous dry brush. Now following that dry brush, I'm going to be coming in with some brown wash. Now this is a wash I've made myself using just some brown ink, water, and some acrylic medium. But you can just use some really watered down brown acrylic paint, or even Agrax Earthshade. The entirety of the statue again. Hit it with that brown and let it dry.
Meat's back on the menu.
Purple paint. I've got a specific video to show you how to make this purple, as well as the impending blood paint that I've got. I should link it below. But first things first, just apply this purple color. Really any purple will do, red, even a brown, on the halo. Now I had this thing at an angle when I painted it to try and reduce the chances of it dripping on the statue. Probably a good idea. It's starting to take shape. Once everything is dry, you might notice that you've missed some areas on the base coat. I certainly did, but I'm not worried. When I hit this with the blood paint in a second, which I made myself, but you can use Citadel's blood for the blood god, the differences in color underneath will look really natural. You know, there'll be fat, cartilage, chunks of bone. Don't worry about it, it's gonna look good. When the blood is dry, it's time for some dry brushing. Now this time I am applying the dry brush in areas that I think are going to be hit with light that is emanating from the lava flow. So just imagine a straight line going from the lava itself to the other points in the model. If they connect, then you want to give it a little bit of a dry brush, just again with that white paint. So you can see I'm hitting his tummy, I'm hitting his chubby cheeks, and the actual base of the model. When the dry brush is done, you can come in with a black wash. You could use Nuln oil, but once again, I've made my own here, and hit all those grey areas. Try to not hit the gore. Now, if you couldn't be bothered with a lava effect, or you just are a big fan of vampires or corn, you could actually paint the blood and gore effects on the tears itself and just have him weeping some flesh. But I'm not. I'm starting with an orange paint, and I'm making it look like this is an altar to the cheese god, dairy for the dairy god, cheese for the cheese throne. Base coat of orange. No airbrushes are needed. In fact, I'm using the cheapest possible brush. I'm just going to be hitting all those areas that I knew that the light is going to hit with that orange paint. Same orange paint, just dry brushing it, building it up. This is the glow. It's this simple. So I'm going to be adding some depth and more texture to the lava and making it look like, you know, the red-orange lava that we all know and love. I'm just mixing some acrylic medium into some red paint, but any red paint will do. You can just use water. And I'm just hitting the outside edges of the lava flow with the red. Same red paint we've been using. And you're going to add water until the ratio is about 1/3 water to 2/3 paint. I'm doing this in a wet palette that I've made myself. You can either buy them or make them. It's quite easy to make, and I'll probably add a small video just to show how I made this one. It'll just help keep the paint wet for longer, giving you a longer working life. Now all I'm doing is splotchily adding the red over the orange areas, and not worrying if I'm letting a little bit of orange show through, and also just richening up those red areas we've already put down. This is just going to help give a real glowy, molten rock sort of look to the lava and the tears. Just have fun with it. It's an easy process. Take your time. If you are not happy with your lava looking like nacho cheese, Cheeto dust, you may want to make it look a bit darker in the recessed areas and the areas closest to the stone. Now I'm doing this by mixing the blood that I was applying to the gore earlier with the paint in a 50-50 mix, and just a small amount of water just to help with the flow. applying this to the recessed areas and the edges closest to the stonework. And this is going to give a sort of darker, angrier, grimmer shade of that red. Just take your time with this one. And it will also help blend in the colours that are already there around those edges. Make it nice and smooth. A little bit gloss on that finish there, but it helps the effect. The thing about lava, magma, molten rock is that it will cool and you will get some darker areas, some sort of carbon splotches appearing on the surface. To create this effect, I'm just getting a chunk of sponge and some ultra cheap black paint, wiping most of the paint off the sponge itself, and then dabbing the black onto the lava itself. Now you can be as generous as you want to here. In fact, I don't think there's really a limit on having too much on the here. It's just going to make the lava look like it's got a lot of sort of this carbon scored molten flakes on top. Yeah, toasted. Someone forgot to add some glowing effects to the stone, so I'm doing that, just some more orange dry brush. And it's done. With such a terrain piece, you can do more than just make friends with your local goth community. You can also use it in games of Dungeons & Dragons, Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40,000. In fact, I think this would make an excellent proxy for a Noctilith crown, or any other number of already sold terrain pieces, or just a centerpiece. You can see here with the scale, I've got my pocket marine handy. This is really the only test that matters. Yep, pocket marine approves. Thanks for watching. The whole build only cost me $2 in materials, and that was for this candle holder. That was it. The total work time was about 3 hours, not including drying time, so I'm pretty happy with that. I understand that it would be hard to find this exact sculpture at your local op shop, but really any of those tacky, cute sculptures will do the job. People dancing, babies fishing, fairies sitting on a toadstool. The weirder and the cuter, the better the end product will be, I assure you. Check me out at PVA Boy on Instagram or at Trap Turtle on Twitter, and you'll see some posts on my upcoming projects as well as dog photos. And you can also hit me up with questions or anything hobby related at any of those locations, as well as here on YouTube. I try to get back to everybody. If you've got questions, please drop a comment below. And if you like what you've seen, don't forget to subscribe. If your finished, cursed statue starts telling you dark, impossible secrets and grim omens of the near future whilst you're sleeping, do not worry. It just means it's working.